Welcome into the vault. I am Sarah Ellison. As you can see, Bobby Trossett is not with me today. That was planned. He is on his way to Vegas right now, but I do have with me 1057 The Fans, Cordell Woodland. He is here to help me break down practice, maybe start to get some questions in about what could be happening with this Ravens roster as we're closing in on roster cuts, which will begin next week on Tuesday. We've got presser news, and we've got some clips later on today, but from Rod Woodson, who I think preaches when he talks about Lamar Jackson's potential legacy down the future. But first, Cordell, thank you so much for dropping in. I know you won't be here for the full show, just so everybody knows, but I am excited to have you here. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, appreciate you having me as always.
Yeah, so kind of a left field question that stems from a podcast actually Bobby did last night. He was on the Ravens Collective with Jeff Zrebiec and Cole Jackson. And Jeff threw out a very interesting thought. And, if this was Joe Schmo throwing this out, I don't think I would put much weight to it. But because it's Jeff, and we all know that he has been around for quite some time, he brought up a scenario about Ben Cleveland here. I'm going to show you this clip really quickly from last night, Cordell, and then I want to get your thoughts and if you're on the same page as Jeff.
And I know I'm going to get messages I don't like. Now, are we sure Ben Cleveland's a lock? I've been operating under that. I've put him on the team, and I know I'm going to get messages I don't like Ben Cleveland. Whatever. I hear you, but we've seen exactly how his career has gone here. So I think he's on the team because they have no other veteran guard. And I think you need a veteran inside guy. He's versatile. He can play center. He's even played tackle some. So he would be on my roster. I know that for sure. And I think he's going to be on this one. John mentioned they need to find their 9th offensive lineman, who that guy is going to be today. So that tells me they've settled on 8. And who's the 9? I would have to think it's the 4, Noteboom, Vincent, Cleveland, and Bullock. But hey, we've been surprised before there. I mean, I talked to some people in the organization that has really liked, Dellinger, that they like him and they feel like, ultimately he's going to be a pretty solid.
Okay, so that's kind of the two that could. So he's saying, could Cleveland be cut? And he's talking about Dellinger because he would be the other guard there. Now, he does go on to say, he's like, on my roster, I would have him, but he didn't close the door, and he opened the door, actually, to this idea. What are your thoughts on Ben Cleveland?
Good old Jeff stirring the pot. That's the funny part right there. But, look, I would be a little surprised if Cleveland's not on this team. They don't have a lot of depth at offensive line right now as is, especially a lot of guys that you talk about that they can depend on. How dependable do they think Ben Cleveland is? I don't know, but I would imagine they think he's dependable enough to be part of their 9 offensive linemen in my mind. I have a tough time believing that when you look at a room full of offensive linemen that lack experience, lack a lot of starter talent, and you have a guy in Cleveland that does have some in-game experience, that has put together some quality film when he has been thrown out there, I would just be a little surprised if he's not on this team. Now, he does have a suspension most likely coming his way. How much does that play a part into their decision-making? I'm not sure. But I always say it with Cleveland, can I sit here and say it would absolutely shock me if he doesn't? No. You watch him in practice, he's a guy that's just like there. He's just there. I mean, I don't see a guy that's fighting for something. That I don't see a guy that's like trying to force the coach's hand to put him in. And sometimes, to be honest with you, it feels like the fans want him to play more than he does. So I don't know. I would still maintain that I think he's on this roster, but would I say it's the most shocking thing in the world if he's not? I probably not.
Interesting, though, that neither of you, I would have been shocked if, like, I won't be now if it happens, but if Jeff didn't bring it up, I would have been shocked. And I think that's kind of the angle, right? Like, he has the pedigree, he has the experience, he's the veteran. And the thing that would really make it not happen is just what you're saying. Like, you watch him practice and you're like, he's just there. You know, that kind of stuff irks John Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why he hasn't been a starter so far. So, Cordell, because the right guard with Fa'alele and then Cleveland has taken up so much oxygen when we're talking about the offensive line, there's been Andrew Vorhees at left guard who has just been riding under the radar, and I wanted to give him his love. I haven't seen him too much outside of those preseason games, but he's really not playing much, you know. Has he just gone in there and said, "Yep, this is my spot. I'm starting." Unlike what's happened on at the right guard position, are you feeling confident? Yeah, he's the guy who can take left guard, and that's why it's been so quiet surrounding him.
Yeah, I mean, John pretty much yesterday kind of put the cap on the bottle when it came to the starting offensive line. He said that unit is solidified. So Voorhees has won that job. And John kind of tipped his hand, a week or two ago when he basically had said Voorhees is in the lead in Cleveland and get off to a good start. And I do think Voorhees has come on strong here over the last couple of weeks. I think he's put together some good film in these preseason games. And I think the combination of him playing well and Cleveland not necessarily doing anything to put the pressure on him, you get what you're getting right now, which is it feels like a battle that was never really a battle, honestly. And I think that they gave opportunities. There would be days where Cleveland is starting with the first team, and you can go all the way back to minicamp of them doing that. So they definitely gave him an opportunity. But I just think it got to the point to where in the long game, it kind of played itself out. Voorhees was consistent enough, and Cleveland just didn't wow anybody. I just don't think he did enough to really put pressure on the coaches to play him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, kind of switching gears here. When camp started, I was thinking to myself, this roster is so deep. It's going to be tough for an undrafted rookie free agent to make it. Like, it's going to be tough. And now here we are several weeks later, and we might be in a position where we not just see one, but maybe a couple. So here are like the four names I want to throw out to you. And a lot of this has to do with special teams. You've got Jay Higgins, Chandler Martin, who hasn't been making too much noise on defense, but I hear he's making a lot of noise on special teams. There's Keon Martin, and we got to remember we've had a lot of injuries at cornerback, right? Like, who knows how often Jair Alexander is going to have to go and maintain his knee again, right? Like, who knows? Awuzie didn't practice yesterday. So there's that. And then there's Ruben Lowry, who's probably gotten the most buzz as an undrafted rookie, maybe besides Jay Higgins, who's coming up louder now. So of those four, do you see one, two, or any of them making this team?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance you have at least one of them make the team. Like you said, special teams is going to play a big part in that. You look at a guy like Jay Higgins that has popped a little bit on defense, specifically with his coverage. He's a guy that I think you probably can get something out of on special teams. You named Ruben Lowry. I mean, he's been making a lot of plays on defense, and for him, it could become kind of like you look at this secondary room and there are a lot of injury question marks right now, and he has the flexibility to play some corner with predominantly playing safety. And if Jair Alexander, and right now it's Alexander and Awuzie who are both kind of struggling with the injuries right now. Those are two guys. Awuzie is a guy that you would think would be in the mix to play some nickel with Marlon. So if Awuzie is not there, who's that next guy? Most likely Kyle Hamilton, but you move Kyle down. Now you're going to want to have somebody else on the back end. So that could end up being a benefit for somebody like Ruben Lowry that has shown the ability to make plays back there. Look, we saw Geno Stone lead this team in interceptions a couple of seasons ago, really awful. And this is in no way disrespectful, but a lot of those plays that Geno made was just being in the right spot at the right time. And Lowry has shown the ability to do that. So I do think that bodes well for him. Who's you named Chandler Martin. Chandler Martin, I think, is an outside. I think he's probably on the bottom of that list. He does help with special teams, but it's kind of like that's it, and compared to those other guys are at least making plays on the defensive side of the ball as well, not necessarily getting that out of Chandler Martin. So I could definitely see a situation where Larry sneaks in. I could see a situation where Higgins sneaks in. Martin, maybe not. And I can't remember if there one other one that you had brought up.
There was Chandler Martin and Keon Martin. So I'm hearing that Keon. Chandler's probably number 4.
Right.
How would you rank the other 3?
I would have to say Larry's probably at the top for me.
Okay.
Higgins behind him. And Keon Martin is close, very close to that. The only question with Keon is I don't know if he gives them as much on the special team side, which could be, which could hurt him. And he has been a guy that he put together some really good tape from that Cowboys game. So, look, I'm not one of those guys that thinks, like, if the Ravens let some of these guys go, they can't get them back on practice squad. Like, I understand it's a competitive market, and it will be tough to get them all back. But a guy like Keon Martin, it wouldn't shock me if they could get him back on practice squad. He's made some plays on film in the games, but I don't know if anybody's rushing to the phones to try to snag Keon Martin. It could happen, but I think the Ravens are more willing to take their chances with a guy like him and with a guy like Chandler Martin as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, feels like you should be able to sneak one or two of those guys through. Right. Do you feel like Bo Braid is on the outside looking in at this point?
So he's one that it's been tough to kind of put my finger on Bo Braid. Like, I think if I had to bet today, I would say he's not on the roster. But would it surprise me if he is? No. I think he's a guy that they would love to get back on the practice squad too. But he has a name. There were teams that liked Bo Braid coming out of the draft, but his injuries at the time kind of shut that down. So you give him an extra year. He hasn't necessarily blown anybody away, I think, in these first 2 preseason games. So that helps. He did play on the back end of this last game. So I don't know. I don't. My gut tells me he's not on the 53 man. I think he's a guy that they would probably look to get back on the practice squad.
Cordell, I saw yesterday you put out your practice report and you highlighted Mike Green, who I'm very excited about. I'm curious, what was it? I mean, he's been standing out since the pads came on, but I just need more information. What was it that stood out to you about him yesterday? Yeah,
I mean, it just seems like every time they put the pads on, Mike Green he's got a pep in his step. Yeah. And so, yesterday he gets an interception. It's his first interception that I can recall in camp. And then this one that he probably would have gotten a big return on. Just a terrible throw by Cooper Rush. Really, he shouldn't have thrown it. But Green is there. He drops back in coverage, and the ball hits him right in his stomach. And then he had a sack where he just, I didn't even see how he beat Ben Cleveland, but because he did it so fast. It just happened so fast off the snap. But he sacks Cooper Rush yesterday. He just lives in the backfield. His motor jumps off to you when you watch these reps. It's just like, who is 45? Because he's usually one of the fastest ones off the ball. He's continuous. His legs are just continuously moving. I thought he did a good job setting the edge in a couple of those run plays yesterday as well. So he just looks like similar to like Malachi Starks. I've told people he doesn't look like a rookie to me. The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he carries himself on the field with the guys, he blends in really well with the rest of those veterans in that secondary room. I'm not willing to go as far with Mike Green in terms of just his aura gives me a guy that feels like he's been in the league for 5 years. I don't get that vibe from Mike Green, but I do get a vibe from him that this is a dude that he's going to beat you if it's a one-on-one. I'm putting my money on him. I'm going to put my money on him every time. So I think that bodes well for a Ravens front that struggled sometimes last year with guys getting double teamed. Now it's getting to the point to where, you can't double team everybody. You're already getting double teaming Matabike on the interior at times, always coming off 10 sacks. Van Noy has been consistent the last couple of years. Like, somebody's going to get one-on-one matchups. And if it's 45, then it probably is going to be bad for the quarterback.
Love it. Love it. And I've got one more question. I have one from a super chat. If we can just do these final two and I'll let you go. My question is do you feel like Cooper Rush has been an upgrade to Josh Johnson?
That's a good question. If I'm going off of just what I've seen on the field, probably not. If I'm not saying that it's been worse.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, Johnson wasn't throwing as many picks. Johnson would throw more. The incompletions would be there. The ball would hit the ground a lot, but he wasn't the interceptions. I think Cooper Rush has got him in that department. Cooper Rush just doesn't look very comfortable to me with it out here. He just doesn't look very comfortable to me. I think he's a better
player. Is it the new
player.
offense? Do you feel like he could become better? Okay.
Maybe, like, I won't discount the idea of, God forbid, something happens to Lamar and Cooper Rush has to go out there. I won't discount that he is talented enough to work with that starting offense and have Derrick Henry behind him and have Mark Andrews and all these receivers. Like, he probably would look better than he has to this, playing with the 2s and the 3s. So I'll give him that. But I haven't necessarily seen it in practice, and you guys have seen it in the games. I mean, this Cowboys game was better than the first game. How could it not be? The first game was just dreadful. Right. But the Cowboys game raised the bar a little bit, but he didn't blow me away. He was okay. I haven't seen it from him consistently in practice, though. That has been disappointing. I thought that this was a good signing in real time. It's not like they blew a lot of money to sign him, so I don't think it's a waste. I wouldn't call it that. I still would take my chances with Rush over a Josh Johnson or even a Tyler Huntley right now. But that said, I would like to see him look better in these practices and in these preseason games than he has.
Agree completely. We'll finish out with this. This is from Park Heights Profits. He says, question for Cordell. Is there any difference in the defense and Zach Orr from last year to this year? Is there more comfort and complexity from all involved? And how has Pagano been? And week 3, official vault tailgate in lot G. See you there. LOL. He's been pushing that one. That's the Detroit game. Is that what it is? I know he's been pushing that one.
I think it is. Yeah. I think that is the Detroit game.
He's been putting together a tailgate over there for that game. So he's been pushing it. So difference in Zach Orr's defense, comfort, complexity, and Pagano.
Yeah. I mean, I had asked, we talked to Broderick Washington yesterday, and I asked him about just the difference that he feels in this defense from last year's training camp to right now this year. Obviously, last year, a lot of turnover, specifically on the coaches' side of things. And you lose. I mean, you gain Zach Orr, who is his first year calling plays. So a lot of new last year. And, he talked about just guys buying in more and guys being more together as a collective unit. And I think you got to see that last year. They didn't seem like they were playing together in the first half of the season on the defensive side of the ball. It didn't seem like guys necessarily, I won't say that it didn't look like the guys had bought in, but it didn't look like guys fully understood what was being asked of them. It didn't look like everybody understood or everybody was on the same page. I'll say that. This year, you could tell everybody is on the same page, because what I look for specifically on defense is, when guys are comfortable when they start trying to make plays on the ball, because now you're going off instincts. Now you're not just being the robot of trying to do your assignment. Now you're trying to make a play. And that's what you've seen. You've heard them talk a lot about the turnovers. This has been the most turnover prone training camp that I've been to in my 5 years covering the team. I have not seen this many interceptions thrown in camp. Especially from a guy like Lamar. And it's not like Lamar's throwing 3 a day or something like that. Just as a collective, there have been days in the past where there wouldn't be any turnovers. And there's been a couple this year, but very few and far in between. So this defense looks more aggressive. I think having a stable of pass rushers adding Mike Green helps a lot because it now allows some of those guys on the back end to make some plays. I just see a defense that I think is more likely to pick up where they left off from last year, as opposed to the start of last season. It just looked like they were still trying to figure things out. It looked like everybody was trying to figure things out. I would be surprised if that's how they look this year.
Good. That's what we need to hear. Cordell, Maggie here says, love the updates, Cordell. Glad to see you on the vault. I'm glad that you've been able to come in again today. Anything that you want to plug that you've got coming up over on 107 or 105.7 The Fan or elsewhere?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me as always. Nothing necessarily to plug, just follow me. You can listen to The Fan if you're here in Baltimore, or if you're not, you can download the Odyssey app and listen. You never know which show you'll hear me on or which shows you may hear me filling in as a co-host for. So just keep it locked to that station and follow me on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, definitely go follow him on Twitter. Has become, for sure, during training camp, one of my favorite follows. We appreciate you, Cordell. And I think we'll see you Friday, right? We're set up for Friday?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
I'll talk
Great.
to you guys Friday.
Thank you, Cordell. Have a good one.
Thank you. Yep.
All right. Cordell Woodland. Always good with the updates. He's been at every single training camp practice. And if I were more on top of things, Bobby's always good about bringing in their Twitters, but the Twitter handles and whatnot. So let me see here. There he is. He is it's that simple, at Cordell Woodland. Really, really good follow. So interesting stuff from him. I thought it was interesting he couldn't call Cooper Rush an upgrade yet on Josh Johnson. Maybe he will get there, saying that he doesn't look quite comfortable yet. He was kind of with Jeff in the sense that he was like, yeah, I think he's going to be on the team, but would it shock me if he wasn't? No, I still think it would still shock me. It would still shock me, even knowing how he practices bothers John Harbaugh and all that. But I mean, how many veteran backups do you have? So, I mean, all that tells me the fact that both Cordell and Jeff are just even saying it wouldn't surprise them. I feel like that just tells me how bad he does practice. Like when Cordell was like, he's just out there. It's like, dang, dude, you had a competition. You could have won one of the guard positions. We've all seen the inconsistent roller coaster that Daniel Fa'alele is, and you can't beat that. They didn't want to hand the job to Andrew Vorhees, but you couldn't even put yourself in that conversation. And that's too bad, because when I see Cleveland outside of last week when he landed on his butt, that was just bad technique from him. His hands were wide, his base was wide, and he just got bulldozed. But when we've seen him in the games, he's had good tape. That's why we've been crying for his name. But now we're to the point that he practices so poorly that the reporters are like, yeah, I think he'll be on the team, but it wouldn't surprise me if not. And then I just found it surprising. Again, this is kind of from last night on the collective. Jeff was saying, man, I think that multiple UDFAs could make this team. And so sounds like Chandler Martin would be at the bottom of the list, but there's legit guys that are pushing for it. So much so that it's like, is Bo Braid going to make it after he made it last year? Is somebody like Ruben Lowry or some of these special teams guys where you're like, we just need special teams spots. So maybe Jay Higgins makes it in. And then there's, issues with injuries with some of the older cornerbacks. So could Keon Martin force his way on? I mean, could it be more than one? That's what I'm going to have to tinker with. And I will have Jason from Huddle It Up Films on Monday to talk about, to actually make our predictions. Like, these are all things to brainstorm about and think about as we make our predictions. But I will make my final predictions on Monday. So let's get to some super chats. Thanks so much to Cordell there. Of course, Douglas H. Brown Sr. started things off this morning before the show started at 11:11 a.m. Good morning, Sarah. We will be here for you today since your partner is traveling. And he says, not that you need our help. Shoot, I'm not too proud to take people's help. I appreciate you, Douglas, and all of your support as always. And then Douglas also getting things started with the gift giving. He gave 10 new memberships to other subscribers of the Vault. DHB Senior, you know that we love you here inside the Vault. Mike just coming in, giving a what is that? What currency is that? I don't know. But $1 there. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you. And Park Heights, he gave two super chats already. Actually, he's given 3 as I'm scrolling down. He's off to a hot start. He says, I've been MIA, but checking in. We are starting to come together and looking good. Jarrett Johnson at practice. I will get to that in a minute. He says, the vibes are high. I've gone beyond 20-0 to thinking Lamar throws no picks this season. PHP can't go positive enough with these predictions. 20-0, no picks for Lamar. He said, call me crazy, but this is the year. Hashtag 20-0. PHP, we always love your energy and what you bring inside the vault. We missed you. Glad you could be here. I know you got lots of work going on your end that you have to take care of. Rave Kingdom is not happy. This has been a tough week for Rave because he was, he was self-aware enough. He's been riding for Ben Cleveland for a long time, and even he had to say, okay, that was rough for both me and Ben when he got pushed down, fell on his butt. But I don't think Rave Kingdom likes these questions being put out there about Ben Cleveland. He says, y'all think this is funny, I see. Grr. Hashtag Ben Cleveland. You know what, Rave Kingdom? Everybody in their life needs somebody like you to ride for them the way you ride for Ben Cleveland. I love it. I absolutely love it. And who knows? Maybe Ben Cleveland will have a comeback. Maybe you'll be able to put this in everybody's faces, Rave. I hope you can. Park Heights Prophet again says Malachi Starks, Mike Green, Emory Jones Jr., Teddy Buchanan, Carson Vincent, Tyler Loop, LeJohntay Wester, Aeneas Peebles. The window is wide open. Another decade of dominance is in the building. Hashtag 20-0. He's naming all these guys that are draft picks and not even the UDFAs. So he's just naming the whole draft class and definitely expecting big things from those top 2. At least, I don't know about big things. Malachi Starks, big things. Mike Green certainly having an impact this year. Emory Jones, Teddy Buchanan, Carson Vincent. We'll see. Tyler Loop is obviously going to be taking the reins at the kicker position. LeJohntay Wester is going to be your punt returner. And I will get to Aeneas Peebles in a minute, but John Harbaugh had big things to say about Aeneas. So, Maggie, we already got yours. And PHP, we got your other one. Let me get this off the screen. I have to say, I do miss Bobby. He's the usual producer here. And I like to by the way, obviously, because Bobby's not here, I was plenty late. Definitely miss having him on days like today where there was so much to get in. So apologies for being late. I had to apologize before to Cordell. He was supposed to start at 12:10. I think that's when we finally went live and had to do the countdown. So definitely have to restructure things in my mornings when Bobby's out, but school's back in with my kids, and I just couldn't shift around too much. So I was trying to get Bobby stuff done and my stuff. And so my apologies for being late. Appreciate anybody out there giving me grace. And let me get to one more super chat here. Tron, the Black Ranger, celebrating his 5th month of membership. Looks like he's one of the OGs. He says, Sarah, I've always loved your work and would read late for work every day. You would be able to do a Sarah's quick hit segments every week. Much love. Would you be able to do a Sarah's quick hit segment every week? Now, are you saying would this be different than when we do quick hits at the end? Are you saying you want once a week where it's just quick hits news from the week? Is that what you're asking for? We do have quick hits at the end of every show. So I'm assuming you're asking for something different. Okay. Let's see here. Let me take that off the screen. Now, I mentioned that I wanted to get to some takeaways from press conference yesterday. John Harbaugh was at the press conference, and he was asked about the offensive line. I think this is probably the confirmed news of the day yesterday, although I wouldn't say that it was anything groundbreaking. Certainly not that. But he was asked about the offensive line, which we talked a little bit about with Cordell. And he did say that they are trying to finalize the final 9. He left open the door of keeping a 10th. And so he was also asked, well, was the starting 5 solidified? And he said, yes. So, okay. So we already knew this. We were hoping there'd be more of a competition at right guard. I don't know that there ever was one based off of what we're hearing from training camp. And Cordell is saying that Cleveland is basically just out there. So your starting 5 is as follows: Ronnie Stanley, Andrew Vorhees, as Cordell said, he definitely won that job, Tyler Linderbaum, Daniel Fa'alele, and Roger Rosengarten. So we're going to see. We have 2 new starters, actually 1 new starter. So we got 4 returning starters in Stanley, Linderbaum, Fa'alele, and Rosengarten. Voorhees technically started week 1 last year, got injured, didn't win it back. So I guess from week 1 to week 1, you have all 5 returning, but I consider Andrew Voorhees a new starter personally, just because McCary took it over. So yeah, so basically Harbaugh said that he feels like they're going to keep 9 at the offensive line, leaving open 10. But we talked about there's undrafted rookie free agents. There's needs at other positions. So maybe they won't need it. But there's your top 5. Then you've got Noteboom as your veteran swing tackle. You've got, in my book, Cleveland. And then I think you're probably going to get Corey Bullock in there. And so who is that 9th guy? Is it going to be your draft pick? Probably Carson Vincent, right? And so I would put in Corey Bullock, but I guess there's Dillinger in there. There's some other guys, but I think that's what I would do with my 9. I think Dillinger would be out, Carson Vincent would be in, and Corey Bullock would be in, along with Noteboom and Cleveland. So there's my preview for there of what I think they will do. Meanwhile, I promised that I would talk about Aeneas Peebles. John Harbaugh, I thought, made a pretty decently big statement on him yesterday. In fact, let me see. I don't think I brought it in, but I think I can now. I had some highlights on Aeneas. Yeah, here we go. From this last preseason game against the Cowboys. And we're going to keep it small, but they're highlighting Aeneas. Look at how fast and how much pressure he's able to get up the middle. Look at that move. Like the way he can move, and look at him push the Cowboys quarterback out of the pocket almost immediately. Now here he comes coming towards us again. And there he is again putting pressure on him. So, the quarterback just kind of had to throw it up there. So there he is on the left side. He's so fast. He commanded a double team on that one. Now here he is coming in from the left side, another double team. And it's like, really? Really? This is your undersized defensive tackle? And look at him just bull rush that guard there, putting pressure. He didn't get around the guard. He just pushed the guard into his quarterback's pocket. And so John Harbaugh seems to be very impressed when he was asked about Aeneas and how he's done so far. He's like, he flashes. He's quick. He gives us a change-up speed pitch. Maybe it's a fastball. Then Harbaugh says, he's quick in there. And I think we just saw that with some of those highlights where he was beating those guys one-on-one. And eventually they started to have to double team him. If you're not double teaming him, again, this is against the seconds and the thirds. It's not like he's going up against the starters. And that's like, it's a different level. There's different quickness. There's different power. But he was so fast getting into the pocket that they started to double team him there. John Harbaugh goes on to say, quote, "We've always had these big, powerful defensive linemen, but when we saw Aeneas, we liked him. And then he was still there in the 6th round. And it's like, maybe he doesn't fit the prototype of Ravens D lineman of the past, but here's a guy who can give us a little something different that we haven't had. And we're all excited about that." John Harbaugh then is like realizing he's saying big things about a 6th rounder. So he kind of hedges his bet a little bit. And he says, Aeneas still has a lot to prove. He hasn't played in a regular season game yet. But then John says, but he will. He's going to be out there. So there's already big plans. There's already big plans of getting him in that lineup. This isn't a developmental pick that I think we're seeing with Carson Vincent, right? Drafted in about the same round. This isn't, a situation like maybe Teddy Buchanan, who's kind of like unsure of how much he's going to be able to produce. This is John Harbaugh saying, oh, he's ready. He's probably not going to be a starter, but he's going to be a change of pace, if you will, defensive tackle. They're going to start with Matabike in there and Travis Jones. And everybody's been talking about Travis Jones this week. Everybody. I know Jeff Zrebeck put up a feature story on him. I've heard Mike Mayock this week say, oh, he's going to have a major breakout year. Who else have I heard this week? I don't know. I've listened to so many different things nationally. I've heard his name called multiple times, and we all see it, that Travis Jones is going to break out. Those are some big dudes. They're not as big as Michael Pierce, but those are some bigger dudes. So great. Then bring in Aeneas. Bring in something different. Have that change. Bring in the speed. And the offensive linemen, the opposing offensive linemen, are going to have to try to figure out how to deal with this this change of pace. It's almost like, you kind of want to compare it to at running back with Derrick Henry, and then you could bring in Keaton Mitchell. And it's just like, you got to be ready for a bruiser, just an athletic alien, and then the speedster. Same thing here. You're going to have Travis Jones, Matabike, who can just gobble up double teams, get pressure, but in a different way. And then you have to switch it up and be like, how do I deal with Fub at 6 foot even and 298 pounds or 289. So it's a big dude, but small for a defensive tackle. So good insight there from John Harbaugh. And I forgot to put a picture with this, but Cordell Woodland's coworker, Rita, also at 105.7 The Fan. She talked a little bit about Travis Jones. She said, I saw Travis Jones chase down Huntley once as a rookie. Huntley was at full speed, and Travis Jones was there stride for stride, she says. Couldn't tell me he wasn't going to be nice back then. So I'm happy to see him living up to his potential. I like, there's still a part of me that for sure wants to see this interior defensive line against the run, only because Michael Pierce was such a large human being and they were number one against the run. So that part I'm still curious to see a little bit more of. But overall, I think the defensive line might be one of the strengths. This year, especially if Travis Jones is indeed able to break out. Is he going to break out and become the guy that everybody's predicting? We already know who Matabike is. He already got his second contract. He already has a season where he had 13 sacks. He's already an all-pro. And then so now we get to see these other guys kind of mix in there. So it could be a strength. Okay, so PHP brought this up in his super chat, talking about Jarrett Johnson being in the building. So this is from Bo Smoka. He grabbed this shot of the two of them. It is cool to see him side by side because they do kind of look somewhat similar builds in terms of like height and I don't know, maybe weight. Obviously, Jarrett Johnson isn't in his peak NFL weight era. But here Bo is talking about how Robinson said that a video in the linebacker room features Johnson. And he obviously wears Double J's old number. And he's been open about it, that he tries to play like Jarrett Johnson. And so Jarrett Johnson might be, along with Kelly Gregg, Jarrett Johnson might be one of the all-time underrated defenders in Ravens history. He just was a bring your lunch pail to work kind of guy and did all the dirty work. And Terrell Suggs at the time would get all the notoriety. Everybody would be talking about him. And Double J would just come in and do his job. He'd seal the edge like no other. He'd get some pressure on again, not like not in the way that Terrell Suggs would. But I love that Tavius Robinson sees himself in Double J. And then I love even more that Jarrett's like, I heard that you're trying to model your game like mine, kind of in my pattern. Okay, well, I'm going to come and we're going to chat. And they were seen working out on the field together. And Jarrett Johnson has given him tips. And here's John Harbaugh on the whole situation. He says, yeah, Double J was checking out the new number 95 as the old number 95. They'll get a chance to watch some film together. T-Rob has a lot of respect for Jarrett's game. And then I don't know if you guys have heard this. I probably should have gone and cut it up and brought it in as a soundbite. John Harbaugh was then asked if he's had any interactions with Tavius Robinson, like the interactions he's had with Jarrett Johnson. And John goes, quote, "You couldn't imagine that, right?" He says, "No, T-Rob would never, not in a million years." He's like, "We'll be telling that story for many years." So what story is he referring to? So when John Harbaugh was first hired back in 2008, Steve Bisciotti gave him one of many directives that he wanted to see accomplished as the owner that he wanted from this new head coach. He wanted to see more of a team. He loved their defense, but Steve Bisciotti started to see an unhealthy relationship between the defense and the offense. And he felt like Brian Billick and Rex Ryan was the defensive coordinator, so why wouldn't he? But he felt like they were kind of feeding into that. And so you'd have guys like Terrell Suggs would have multiple lockers, and they kind of talked down to the offenses in like, hey, we're the ones, the defense, we're the ones that win games. You guys don't get in our way. You guys don't mess this up, was kind of the attitude. That's what Steve Bisciotti told me. I interviewed him one-on-one. And so John comes in with that directive from his boss. And the idea was, yeah, keep the defense obviously good, really good, but we need to empower the offense. How can we ever be a complete team if this is the attitude that we have? So John comes in and he's ready to like put the defense a little bit in their place, bring them, keep their performance high, but maybe bring their egos down a little bit. And it wasn't going well. And it became a point in practice where John Harbaugh and Jarrett Johnson got in each other's face. I talked to both John Harbaugh and Jarrett Johnson about this exchange. It's consistent. They both felt like they were about ready to fight. And because John was calling out the defense for not playing well in practice, like he's riding them hard. And Jarrett Johnson didn't like it. And they're in each other's face. And I'm not joking. John Harbaugh tells me that he went up to Jarrett. He's like, "You want to go? You want to go right now?" And luckily, Jarrett Johnson held off because, I mean, look, I know John Harbaugh was an athlete back in the day and he was younger as a first-year coach than he is now. But that was Jarrett Johnson. So, like, luckily, both guys found cooler heads. And so, anyway, that was the joke. Would Tavius Robinson ever get in your face like that? But it was a different time. John was a first-year head coach. John has a little bit more cachet than he did back then. So, no fight, luckily, that day. And eventually, and I will say this, when I talked to Jarrett, to his credit, he looked back. I talked to him. When did I talk to Jarrett Johnson about this? So this happened in 2008. And I talked to Jarrett about it in 2017 or 18, somewhere around there. And Jarrett Johnson was like, yeah, I mean, John was right. John was right. Like, he's like, I see what was happening. Like we needed to like make it a full team. But the process to becoming that way was not very well received. And it was a little bumpy along the way. Okay. So those are the updates from pressers. Let me see if I have any other notes from practice yesterday. Okay, so John Harbaugh did announce that for this upcoming preseason game, we will see basically the same starting and backup rotation as we saw against the Cowboys. So we're going to see Cooper Rush for the entire first half, and then Devin Leary the entire second half. That's essentially what we saw. Maybe they'll tweak it a little bit, but that's what we're expected to see. At practice, in terms of participation yesterday, DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Armour-Davis, those were two players that returned, although I know that DeAndre kind of stepped off again later in practice. I don't know if that was planned with him coming back or if he re-aggravated something, but he did return initially. But those who were not practicing, there was no Patrick Ricard out there, Dayton Wade, obviously Isaiah Likely, obviously Emory Jones, obviously Adisa Isaac. So those are three that you would expect. Kyle Van Noy was missing. And then the two that we talked with Cordell about that we got to keep monitoring is Chidobe Awuzie and Jair Alexander. So, we talked about this yesterday. John Harbaugh said that Jair Alexander had something done to his knee. I don't know if it was them draining it again or if it was something more of a procedure. But he said what was done would require him to stay off of the practice field for several days. So that's what's going on there. And these are two guys. This is why you may need to bulk up and keep a couple more defensive backs on the initial 53-man roster unless they know something we don't. Unless they know that, like, hey, we're being extremely cautious and this won't be needed, or is this something that's going to be happening regularly? So last note from practice yesterday, Tyler Loop went 6 for 8. That was his first action really since officially winning the kicking job, although I think we all knew that was going to happen. I feel like we all knew that from the moment he was drafted, unless he was going to like absolutely botch it, which he has not done. He could work on his consistency for sure, but obviously I feel like he's done enough to win the job and take over the reins. Okay, so what were the two that he missed yesterday? If he went 6 for 8, he missed a 33-yarder, which is like a PAT distance. You don't want to hear that. And he also missed a 58-yarder, which is fine. Every other kick that he did make, the 6 that he did make, he made them all between 25 and 38 yards. So it doesn't sound like they were practicing stuff too far out. Okay, let's see here. We'll get to one more super chat before we change gears. And I want to pull some clips as we frequently do. I like to get into the news of the day and the practice and all that up at the top, and then react to some stuff that has been said out in the media. So one more super chat here. Sherry says, weekly story time with Sarah. I don't know. Do I have that many stories? Maybe. I got to tell you though, you guys, if you haven't heard, if you're kind of like new to the team, my first podcast that I ever did, and did I bite off a lot. I was going to say more than I can chew, but I did finish it. That was probably the craziest, busiest time of my life is when I did that podcast, Man of the Crowd. It's a 9-episode podcast. It is not what Bobby and I do here, which is like this daily review. It was kind of the story of the Harbaugh family. And it's episodical. It's just kind of like the story of their lives up to that point. And I did 30 interviews for it. Everybody. I talked to Steve Bisciotti. I talked to Ozzie Newsome. I talked to John Harbaugh. I talked to Jim Harbaugh. I talked to their parents. I talked to their siblings. I talked to Jim Harbaugh's boss at Michigan, who hired him. I talked to Ray Lewis, Jarrett Johnson. Trying to think. Joe Flacco, Steve Smith, Sr. The list goes on and on and on. Rich Eisen came on for me. Peter King. I'll tell you what, it's took me almost a year to put that together. And so there are a lot of great stories within it. So if you're looking for a story time, Sherry or anybody else, if you've got the time, go back and listen to Man of the Crowd. It's highly produced. I did all the producing. It was the first time I ever did it. And so I don't know how smooth it is, but it's much more highly produced than we got going on here. Really a podcast I look back on that it was like, I remember finishing it when I had my 4th baby. I wanted to have it done before I had the 4th baby. So I was technically working through maternity leave, which was not fun. But it had to get done. And that was the sacrifice I needed to make. I just remember holding my baby and her sleeping in my arms as I was trying to cut it up and during nap time is when I would record it and all that kind of stuff. So kind of brings up memory lane to me. Okay. Switching gears here. We're definitely in the season of predictions and what's going to happen because we're only days away from the 53-man roster. Rod Woodson, who we spoke about earlier this week because he said live during that preseason Cowboys game that Lamar Jackson wouldn't be able to beat the 2000 Ravens defense. We debated that already earlier. Go back and check that if you want. But Rod Woodson went on the Rich Eisen show. This topic did not come up. He was not asked, or maybe they agreed not to be asked about his response to Lamar being like, what? Yeah, I could beat you guys. I'm not just going to stand there and get hit. So they avoided that question. However, I thought that Rod nailed it on the head when he was talking about what we don't want for Lamar Jackson's legacy. And I think we can all be on the same page about this. Because what it is now and what it could be in a good way or what it could be in a bad way. And he's going to talk about how we can prevent what we don't want Lamar Jackson's legacy to be. So we'll start on this. And they were talking about how they can overcome the hump in the postseason. And that's where he kind of went on a little tangent on Lamar Jackson's legacy.
Something happens. The ball pops loose and Zay Flowers looks like he's going in for a touchdown.
I don't know if you guys can see it. Let me see if I can bring it in there better. Sometimes StreamYard does that. Here we go.
It always seems that something happens in January. Something happens. The ball pops loose and Zay Flowers looks like he's going in for a touchdown. Oh, ball comes out. For instance.
Right.
How do you coach again? How do you coach a team to not have that, right? It just seems like it's karma. Or I don't know what it is, but how do you
I don't want to call it karma.
Here?
I mean, I thought last year, because Lamar has not played his best games in those situations, but last year Lamar even made the statement that he knew he was pushing and not having his best games in those situations, in those type of games. So I'm thinking, since he made the announcement, he knows it's happening to him, it's not going to happen. And again, he goes out, he throws a pick. Early, he gets a strip sack later in the game, about at the third quarter. Just one of those games that, I mean, he is so dynamic, and I don't want his legacy to be he's the best in-season, regular season quarterback, but once the playoff starts, they can't get to the Super Bowl, because he's the only two-time MVP in the National Football League that has not won a Super Bowl yet. So, could it happen this year? Absolutely. I think they're stacked. I like them. I love Lamar, and I love how he has grown as a player and throwing the deep ball. We know how exciting he is when he runs with the football in the open field. So that's a given. But his precision of throwing the ball down the field has gotten better. And he's only in year 7. And that's the crazy part about it. He's still in his prime.
Okay. I don't know why Rich Eisen introduced karma. That doesn't make sense to me. Isn't karma like if you put bad stuff out in the world or you make bad decisions, like it comes back and bites you in the butt? Like, I don't like, what did the Ravens do to have like bad karma? So I don't know why that was even introduced. So I'm glad that Rod Woodson was like, no, it's not karma. And he didn't answer the question yet, but we're going to get there. But he talked about Lamar Jackson's legacy. We do not want Lamar Jackson's legacy to be the best regular season quarterback of all time. Right now, don't we feel like that's Dan Marino's title? Dan Marino never went on to win a Super Bowl. One of the best quarterbacks ever, but could never win it all. Lamar, if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, could snatch that because, to Rod's point, he has 2 MVPs, and he's the only 2-time MVP winner that doesn't have a Super Bowl. Now, he got his 2 MVPs pretty quickly, and to Rod's point, he's still in his prime. think he's going into year 8 here. He said year 7. I think it's year 8. But that can't be Lamar's legacy. It cannot be his legacy, which is one of the many reasons why the Ravens must get over the hump. They got to get over the hump. And so what's it going to take? Well, let's start here. This is funny to me. It's going to have to be one step at a time, which is week by week, but always the first goal is to win the division. Bobby and I addressed this at the top of the show yesterday. The AFC North. We feel like the gap from the Ravens to the rest of the AFC North is significant. Okay, so winning your division first, that will set you up with good playoff seeding. The beginning of the schedule this year is going to be paramount. That you're playing against Buffalo and Kansas City. You've obviously got Detroit and Cleveland in there too. These 4 first games are going to have a massive impact on seeding. I know the Ravens believe, and I share this belief, that had they had better seeding and played that Buffalo Bills game in Baltimore, you can never prove this. It's just a hypothesis, but I believe they would have won it in Baltimore. I believe that. The Ravens now have twice been knocked out of the playoffs while playing in Buffalo. And this year, if I understand correctly, they're closing down their stadium. This is the last year they're playing in their current stadium. They've been building another one. I do not want to go up to Buffalo, say like it's in the divisional round, and they don't, and maybe they have to go to KC in the AFC Championship game, or the Ravens do. I do not want potentially the last game in the Bills' current stadium to be against the Ravens. It's too much motivation. So the first part of these first 4 games is going to be massive on the seeding. If Buffalo and KC and the Ravens are all in the same kind of bucket, close to the same bucket when it comes to their records, these head-to-head matchups are going to be massive. So you want to get seeding, but before that, you want to win the division. This was funny. Rich Eisen's question to Rod Woodson about the division and his answer made me chuckle.
The biggest threat to the Ravens in the AFC North is?
I don't think there is one.
Okay, now.
Hold on, let me just play that again. There's a pause. Who's the threat, Rod?
I don't think there is one.
Okay, now. Rod,
okay, now he did go on and say that he thinks that the Steelers are going to be better than people are giving them credit for. I hear him. Obviously, their defense is always legit. It's always one of the best defenses in the league. But he went on to say that it was like, if the offensive line can protect Aaron Rodgers can still sling the ball. So that's the big if, okay? But how funny was that? Who's the biggest threat? I don't think there is one. Okay. All right. So we're confident about that. Rod later on talked about how good this roster is. We've been talking about EDC has put together a roster. It doesn't mean it's a Pro Bowl roster every single place that you look, but it's certainly one of the top 2 or 3 rosters. But so it was last year too. So what is it going to take to get over the hump? Well, let me play a clip from Mike Mayock. He was on the Glenn Clark show. He talked about why the Ravens haven't bust through, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't agree. It's a very popular talking point, and I'm not saying it's without merit, but I don't agree. Here is Mike Mayock on why the Ravens haven't busted through just yet in the postseason.
A la Peyton Manning once upon a time. At some point, you're going to bust down the door, you're going to win a Super Bowl, or how might this affect an organization going through these frustrations?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do have to keep putting yourself in that position, and I think the Ravens do. I think there are certain times in NFL history where you look at teams that are up against something really extraordinary, and sometimes they break through, and sometimes they don't. And, of course, I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, they've been, what, five of the last 6 Super Bowls, maybe on the AFC side?
Yeah.
And Cincinnati, the only one that got there besides Kansas City. So what you're really looking at is one of the most extraordinary franchises in the history of the NFL. At the same time, the Ravens are trying to kick down that door. If you look at Kansas City, Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach. Their quarterback is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Their defensive coordinator, even though he didn't have the numbers as a head coach, Steve Spagnuolo is a Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. I mean, that's a special organization, and I'm blown away by what they've done in the last 6 years. And it's watching Cincinnati, watching Baltimore, and watching Buffalo try to kick the door down.
Okay, so Mike Mayock gives a very popular answer to why the Ravens haven't broken through in the playoffs yet. And I'm not saying it's completely without merit, but I don't think it's totally it. He basically says it's because of Kansas City. I think that's the story for the Buffalo Bills. I don't think that's the story for the Ravens. Although they are going to have to break through the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs obviously beat them in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. But if we're just going to name teams that the Ravens haven't gotten past, it's Buffalo and Kansas City. It's Buffalo that's actually knocked them out twice, Kansas City once. And there's others, like the Titans did it 1 year. Chargers did it 1 year. I think those are the five times in the Lamar Jackson era. It's not that, though. Maybe it could become that. But you guys know this. You guys know this. We have not seen the Ravens play their best ball in the games that they lose. When Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills have gone up against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, it's like, dang, Josh Allen put everything on the line. He played super well, and he still couldn't beat the Chiefs. The Buffalo Bills did so much right, and they still couldn't beat the Chiefs. That's the answer for the Buffalo Bills. They've done everything. They played to close to the best of their ability, and they just couldn't overcome the Chiefs. That is not the Ravens story. That's not it. The Ravens story is not playing up to their potential, not playing up to their ability in the postseason. Now, if we get to the point where the Ravens play their best game and then the Chiefs still win, then I would say Mike Mayock is correct. But I don't think that's it. It's the Ravens not matching their play in the postseason to the regular season. I think there are two things to that. First and foremost, just to be Captain Obvious here, but because the offseason is so long, different narratives come in like this one. Honest to goodness, stop turning the ball over. And defense, get a couple of takeaways. Like, it doesn't make it doesn't make good TV. It doesn't make good radio. But if we're just being like basic and talking about the very reason that's staring us in the eye, it's the turnover margins. The offense turns it over too much. The defense doesn't turn it over enough. How many turnovers did their defense force last year in the playoffs? 0. And Zach Orr, the defensive coordinator, talked about that. He said, we can't do that as a defense. That can't be our standard. We got to get the ball back in Lamar Jackson's hands. Marlon Humphrey has been pushing this narrative all offseason. We got to get the ball more. And the good news is, as Cordell just mentioned, he said he's never seen the defense get as many picks as he's seen them do in this training camp. In all the years that he's covered the Ravens. He's never seen the defense force this many turnovers. So hopefully that goes into the regular season and then the postseason. Then on the flip side, it's the turnovers. And we've seen, yes, Lamar Jackson turn the ball over with fumbles. We've seen some interceptions, which is crazy because he only had 4 interceptions the entire regular season. We've seen Zay Flowers get the ball knocked out of his hands at the goal line against the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen Mark Andrews get the ball punched out when he was midfield, caught the ball on the run and decided to run horizontally instead of vertically and got the ball punched out. How do we not say it's turnovers? Now, what's the cause to having so many turnovers when you had fewer in the regular season? That could be debated a little bit more. And this is where I think Rod Woodson is probably onto something, where he feels like there needs to be bigger, louder voices on offense that can really galvanize the guys when they're in the playoffs.
2 years. How do we deal with this, Rod?
And I don't want to say they don't have leaders, because I think they do.
Mm-hmm.
But the times they've won the Super Bowls, I mean, Ray was that alpha guy in the locker room on the sideline. And I think something like that has to happen somewhere along the line during these type of games. Somebody has to rally the troops. It always can't be the coaches. It can't be the coaching staff. It can't be the head coach. It has to be the players that rally themselves on the sideline or talking to themselves on the sideline. And Lamar's not an outgoing, spoken person in a sense like that,
right?
But he is a leader. And for me, I think we need another guy on that offensive side to be more vocal, along with Lamar. Defensively, we know Rowe is there.
Right.
They got some players. We know Kyle Hamilton, even though he's young,
yes,
people are going to listen to him because he is a player.
Right.
So they have the pieces to the puzzle on that defensive side. I just think they need another voice on the offensive side to go along with Lamar during the games.
Yeah, so that I can get on board with. Like, to me, the reason why the Ravens haven't gotten over the hump is because of the Ravens. I'm not blaming the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't think the Buffalo Bills are that much better. I just don't. Turnovers and mental preparedness. They've been talking about it. Odafe Owe said that we got to tell ourselves that we're enough. And what's funny is, like, I don't even know. They added that voice to the defense with Jair Alexander. And they do have Derrick Henry for sure. But Derrick Henry's not a loud guy either. He's not a loud guy either. And so will one of these young guys, like, will Zay Flowers talk more? Rashad Bateman's not a big talker either. Mark Andrews isn't like the biggest talker. Is it Isaiah Likely? Is it Zay Flowers? Is it, like, I'm trying to think of somebody along the offensive line, like a Marshall Yonda that used to do it. Like, who's going to be yelling? Zay Flowers actually was on The Lounge, the Ravens podcast they posted today, and he talked about Lamar as a leader and speaking up more and all that kind of stuff. And we have been hearing the reports that Lamar is speaking up more. Listen, Lamar, we know you lead by example. We love that. And we know you are getting more vocal. I wouldn't hate it if he's got I'm not a big cursor, as you guys know. But I wouldn't hate it if he got in a couple of guys' face masks every now and then. Kind of rally the troops. Derrick Henry, you're a future Hall of Famer. I know you like to lead by example, but I don't think it would hurt if you yelled at some guys sometimes. If you need to get after some of the offensive linemen, if you need to get after whoever you need to get after. But I think Rod is right. I think it'd be good to have more swagger, more talk, all that kind of stuff, just to show, hey, they're not going to get in our heads because we have the talent. We have the talent. So, but I think sometimes the answers are just simple. Don't press too much. Don't turn the ball over. If you need to start slow and have a couple of punts, I'm okay with that. That's better than turning the ball over, right? At the 50 or at the 40 on either side. So I'm not here to just blame Kansas City. I think the Ravens can beat Kansas City. You're telling me if the Ravens put in their best game, if the Ravens met Kansas City in the AFC Championship game and they put together their best game, you don't think they can beat Kansas City? Buffalo's put in their best game, and they've fallen short. I don't think that's the Ravens' issue. The Ravens are the Ravens' issue. And I like what Rod is saying there. Get some voices in there. Get another voice with Lamar. Lamar himself can speak up a little bit more. If you need to get in people's faces, I'm not against it. All right, let me see here. Any new super chats? Okay, one more super chat, then we'll do quick hits, and then I will get out of here. Nick Marty says, we need turnovers and protect the football in the playoffs. That's exactly what I'm saying, Nick. That's exactly what I'm saying. We're on the same page. Let's see here. What do I have for quick hits? That one I'm going to skip and come back to later. Joe Flacco, obviously has been named the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He was at podium yesterday. And so unless he gets injured in week 1, seems like he will also be the starter in week 2 when the Cleveland Browns come to the Ravens for their home opener, which will also be their big party for the celebrating the 30th season in Baltimore, which is kind of ironic because it's the very city that the Ravens came from. They left Cleveland. And so they're going to celebrate their 30th anniversary from leaving Cleveland and coming here against the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that the Ravens planned it that way. I don't think the Ravens are that petty. I think it's more about them. It's the home opener. And it just so happens that the Browns are the home opener. Like, when else are you going to celebrate the 30th season in Baltimore, but your home opener in Baltimore? But, I guess it's fun to pretend that they're that petty. Anywho, coming back to Joe Flacco, he reacted to the fact that for the first time since 2018, when Lamar Jackson took over the reins as the franchise quarterback, since that time, this will be the first that Joe Flacco will return to M&T Bank Stadium. Joe, sir, what is your reaction?
I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So, that is what the plan is, and it would definitely be very exciting.
Joe, when you guys...
Is that the most Joe Flacco response ever? How monotone. Let's play that again. Here we go, Joe. Tell us again.
I love playing in Baltimore. Such a special place. Unbelievable fans. Division game. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. So, that is what the plan is, and it would definitely be very exciting.
Joe, when you guys...
It would definitely be very exciting. It's so Joe Flacco. Oh, I love him until the games begin. Let's see this quick hit here. Fox Sports put together their top 10 cornerbacks entering the season. They've got Marlon Humphrey as number 6. So you got Pat Surtain at number 1, Derek Stingley Jr., Sauce Gardner, Trent McDuffie, Christian Gonzalez, Marlon Humphrey. Then at number 7 is Denzel Ward, Devin Witherspoon, Jalen Johnson, and Diamore Lenore. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I think that's some love to Marlon Humphrey, to be honest. He's been around for a minute. Maybe a guy that we take for granted a little bit. Maybe just because he doesn't get as many turnovers. Maybe he's not as pop off the page as much, but he's good. He's good playing inside, outside. It's so nice to have that flexibility. And Fox, I think, giving him some love by putting him number 6. I like that top 4. Could he beat Christian Gonzalez up for number 5? Maybe. But not a terrible ranking there. Another quick hit here. So the Ravens had a pretty nice gesture to some of their former players. Apparently, there are 140 Ravens legends that are crossing across the country or coaching across the country. I don't know if that's like former Ravens coaches also, if it's like former coaches and former players, but there are 140 former Ravens that are coaching across the country. And so what the Ravens did is they sent out this box with whistles and a message inside to everybody that has that's coaching out there. And the Ravens Twitter post says, the whistles are just a small token from the Ravens to let our legends know we are thinking about them as they start their seasons. We are proud of them and we are cheering for them on and off the field. That's just nice. That's just a nice thing to do. Like, these are things like like the Ravens themselves are ramping up for a big season, and they know what's on the line. They know the stakes. And I know this is the support staff kind of doing this, but I'm sure obviously coaches and stuff like that are in on it. So Bernard Pollard, who according to this random website that we showed yesterday says is the most hated player of the Ravens fan base. I don't know if he's the most hated, but I know that there's been some issues the way he and Lamar went back and forth. But he posted it. He posted the box. There it is. Pretty nice. And in the message it says, as a Raven on and off the field, you have proven what it means to lead with heart, grit, and determination. You have demonstrated the highest standard of excellence and commitment to yourself and those around you. Now, as a coach, you are achieving something even greater, shaping young athletes, building character, and sharing core values that led you to your dream of playing in the NFL. Okay, so it is former players. That's a lot of people coaching. Anyway, I'll go down. It says, once you're a Raven, you're forever a Raven. If we can serve you in any way, email this. No, we probably shouldn't have put that email thing up, but Bernard Pollard did. But I'm sure this guy doesn't need to be inundated with other emails. So, but yeah, just a nice gesture from the Ravens out to their former players that are now coaches. So let's finish up here. We got 2 more super chats before I take off here. PHP, man, he's been out working, I'm assuming, or dealing with family or whatever you got going on. I know you started the show saying that you're MIA. You have made up for that and then some. I mean, this is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your 4th super chat, all $10 or above. I think you put in 2 20s and 2 10s, like just out here spending money, being generous inside the vault. Appreciate you, PHP. We appreciate you. So on this super chat, he says, I have said it before. Watched Lamar in Buffalo, and he was the vocal leader. Folks let him down in the second half. Miles ahead of where he used to be attitude-wise. See 2019 versus Titans, and then 2023 versus Casey. I do feel like Lamar has for sure been more vocal. I think we've heard that from everybody. Is he like a Ray Lewis or Terrell Suggs vocal? No, he doesn't need to be, but he may need to get in people's face masks every now and then. So I appreciate that PHP is highlighting that he has changed quite a bit, and maybe more is needed as they go forward. Eli Sports Guy says, how many times have we seen other QBs turn the ball over in big games, but yet the team as a whole steps up and the team still wins? You know what? Actually, and I do got to go because I got to go pick up my son. So my son is in the final 2 weeks of getting his driver's license. And yes, here it is right here. Let me see if I can screenshot this and pull it in real quick. Anyway, my son is doing his final week of in-car lessons that he's required to do before he can get his driver's license. Like he takes his big test next week. We're actually, whenever I can schedule it, can't do it until after he finishes this in-car stuff. How do I bring this in? Let me see if I can put this in downloads. I really want to get to this for Eli Sports Guy. See, this is why we need Bobby around here. Please be patient. Please be patient as I do this. Here we go. Let me put this over here. No, you don't want to go in there either. There we go. Now I can pull it in here. So I do got to run and get him, but I'm very determined, clearly, at looking at these. There we go. Okay, let me take you off here for a second, Eli. So somebody had pulled this from StatMuse and talked about this is opponent turnovers. The Kansas City Chiefs, well, let's just, to your point, the team kind of stepping up, right? If quarterbacks are to turn the ball over. And this is not to say, hey, let's let Lamar keep turning the ball over. Like he's got to clean that up for sure. But other guys do need to step up. Here we go. The Kansas City Chiefs have 22 opponent turnovers with Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs all time. So the Kansas City Chiefs have forced 22 How about the Cincinnati Bengals? Well, they've forced. And how often do we talk about how bad the defense is over there? How often have we talked about that? Kansas, they have terrible defense. Lamar always has great defenses, and he has had good defenses, but this is massive. The Bengals have had 13 opponent turnovers with Joe Flacco in the playoffs all time. The Buffalo Bills have 13 opponent turnovers with Josh Allen in the playoffs all time, so 13 for each of those. The Baltimore Ravens have 2 opponent turnovers with Lamar Jackson in the playoffs all time. Are you kidding me? So 22 for Kansas City, and they've obviously played in the most games, so that gives their defense the most chances, but still 22. Bengals and Bills both have 13. The Ravens have 2. National media talk a lot about Lamar. And of course, that's fair. Lamar needs to play better in the postseason. But to Elias Sports Guy's point, other people got to step up. Other people got to step up in the form of not turning the ball over. Lamar, Zay, Mark, and then the defense has got to step up. So good super chat there. Appreciate that. All right, so I will be back tomorrow. Whoops, did not mean to do any of that. Let's see here. Tila, just so you know, we are at 1,000 concurrents here today. Great show. I really appreciate Cordell Woodland coming out and being on the show with me, talking over everything we've seen. He's seen it practice and how it impacts some roster decisions that are coming up. Loved going through some of those pressures, and ES Peebles getting a lot of love. We know the starting 5. We know that John's keeping about 9 offensive linemen. Keep that in mind. And then just this idea of what it's going to take to get over the hump. And I'm not putting it on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Ravens can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. They just got to play up to their potential. Bobby will be back with me tomorrow, but he will be joining me from Las Vegas. He's on a plane right now. Might be flying over my head for all I know in this very moment. So appreciate all you guys for being here. Appreciate all the support. And I will see you back here tomorrow, hopefully on time. We'll have Bobby back to help me. So hopefully on time. Talk to you then. Appreciate everybody inside the vault.